Hey, we're live. So today's day one. As I said before, I was going to be creating a trading bot. Had some experiences that I accumulated over the years. I was using Alpaca Markets API to kind of do some trading for me when I wasn't home. And it's really fun. It's exciting. So I just wanted to share with you guys. We're going to get right to it and I guess get into just programming. The other video, the kind of intro, we kind of went over some initial design thoughts. So I got them up here on the screen. I added a few things, just a scheduler and another indicator, rate of change percent indicator. So my first strategy for this one, I just want to keep it simple and I want to trade Tesla. The ticker for that is TSLA. So we're only going to be dealing with one stock and we're going to use two kind of moving averages, one being the simple moving average. So we'll probably, I don't know what time frame we want to pick, probably a daily one. I played around with a few different ones, the 11, the 14, but we'll see what we come up with when we get that far. And then a rate of change percent. So just, how much the stock has gone up or down over a certain period. Again, I'm pretty new at trading. I'm learning myself. So anything you guys want to offer in terms of suggestions regarding stocks, trading, programming, anything like that. This is supposed to be like an open forum, and I'm hoping to build a community where maybe we can all contribute to the same program and get this thing really rocking and making some money for a lot of people. So yeah, I'll just get started. So the first thing I want to do is kind of create the console application. I wanted to keep it a console for now, but I will put the core of the framework in separate libraries. So like the logging probably will be a separate library. Maybe the stuff for the scheduler, not sure. Definitely the core of the runtime, the meat of connecting to like Alpaca and actually making trades and tracking indicators and stuff like that. That's probably going to be all in one library itself. I wanted to do that so that we're not confined to a console application, and we can transition it to maybe a Windows service. I am creating projects here, probably going to be doing the .NET Standard, not .NET Core framework. So .NET Standard, I just don't want to run into any problems later on if I want to use like a shared library from a third party or something that I'm comfortable with, and it may not be compatible with the .NET Core. So let's get a new project. Oh, so I created this on GitHub already. It's just the repo, so you can find it on github.com/justkube, and it's called Trade Me Up. So starting today, I'm gonna be checking in code at the end of the stream, and you can clone it, and then the next day you'll be caught up, and we can kind of go through things together and get it figured out. So I created a solution here. It's just called Trade Me Up. We're gonna add a new project, and like I said, we're doing C#. So we'll just say Windows. That way we don't hopefully get core stuff, but it's still there. That's fine. We'll just say console. So again, I'm going with .NET Framework, the standard, not .NET Core. Yep, okay. Yeah, basic folder. We'll go with the latest. I think it looks like there's 4.8. I'm just going to stick with 4.7.2. I'm not sure if there's compatibility for the Alpaca. They provide a SDK, so I'm going to be using that. They do a lot of the grunt work and actually connecting to their API. So, I'll just be exposing what they've done and kind of using it in a way that we can make some trades. So we're just going to call this Trade Me Up. And I usually just call my console applications terminal, just because there is a Microsoft namespace console, and that can get confusing at times. So Trade Me Up terminal, that's going to be our entry point. So when we run our application, we're going to be running this exe right here, and it's going to launch up and do some trades, and we can see the magic. So create that. Cool. So we got a program. Let's compile it. Let's run it. Let's see what it does. Oh, can't see it. One on my other screen. Hold on. Oh, too fast. All right, guys, we did it. We got a program. It's not doing anything, but hopefully it'll make us some money. And thanks for watching. JK though. So we got our terminal application. We're not going to do anything with that yet. Let's add some other projects here. Second one, we're going to do the runtime. I'm just going to call it runtime. So like I said, we're going to do a class library. It's going to be a shared library for us. And let's see. .NET framework again. And we're going to call this do I want a capital T? Yeah, I do. Runtime. So I am following the same kind of dot naming convention for namespaces. So Microsoft has a pretty well defined standard for the .NET framework, and well, they dot in between their names, and they also use title case. So I'm gonna be trying to follow the same and try to keep it clean. So here we go. That's the class library. Again, 472, let's just keep it at that. Let's keep it consistent. I don't know what's in 4.8. I'm not an expert in programming, but I do know a few things, so we'll stick with 472, and that's something I know. All right, and then let's get another project going here. Let's get our logging going. That's probably the first thing I want to work on. Program sucks unless you can actually see what's happening, so let's get some logging so we can figure out where we're failing all the time. And that's going to be another class library. And trade me up logging. Very cool. Very cool. Wow, so I have about 5,000 people in my chat right now. It is sort of blowing up, so I appreciate all the views. It's getting pretty wild out there. All right. Let's see. No, I'm just kidding about that though. Eventually, one day. Yeah, we'll get thousands. Of course. All right, so we got a library for logging. Kind of cool, kind of cool. So let's just start there. So I have a kind of like a pattern I like to follow with logging. I've done it a few times before. So basically what we're going to get out of it is a console logger and a file logger, but we're going to build it with a factory pattern. So what that'll give us is the ability to add a different logging source in the future. We're going to be using delegates to actually roll the logs out. So basically what'll happen is you'll call your logger that you create, and then you say like, log information, and then it'll log information, but then every logger that is subscribed, it'll go ahead and shoot out, the log to that specific type. So if you create a console and a file logger, well, hey, it's going to log to both places at once. Same goes for if we want to add like Windows event logs or remote logging like an SQL database. I don't know if it's going to get that complex, but hey, let's leave it open for some flexibility there. So we'll just create the interface first. So we'll just call this iLogger. So basically what an interface is doing for you in C#, if you're not familiar with C# at all, well, it's going to define a template. You can call it a template. You can call a requirements document. It's going to basically specify what a type of logger is supposed to have. So if you are implementing a logger, you want to apply the interface iLogger, and that'll tell you everything you need to know to work with the logging framework that we're creating. So an iLogger is going to have a few things here. This is just going to make it capable of doing all the cool stuff with logs. So with, again, in interfaces, they're abstract. They don't have any context whatsoever in terms of how the logger is implemented. That is very specific to the type of logger that you create. So just going to do information. And right now, we're going to keep it basic. We're only going to do string messages accepted to the logger. We can get fancy later with some colors or whatever on the console, but let's just keep it basic. So I'm just going to paste this a few times, actually. And we're going to change this up for everything we want to do. So we'll get debug messages. Those would be great when we don't know what we're doing and we're trying to figure out how to code. Warnings. So that's if something is sort of wrong, but not totally wrong. And we'll get some errors in there. And that's basically, we don't know what we're doing. And then we're going to get a verbose in there to basically fine tune and get down to the nitty gritty of what our actual code is doing. Because at times, especially with async operations, that's what Alpaca works off of. They're doing some streaming data, and you can get lost in your code pretty quick if you don't got some messages going on and you don't know exactly what's happening. So you can throw some verbose in there and see it line by line if you want to. It'd be kind of annoying to see, but you can do that. And we'll add another CS file here. So in C#, they have a CS file. Go figure, C#, CS. So these files are for like classes. They are for interfaces. They are basically little chunks of code that are going to be, kind of broken up, very modularized, makes it, so you can keep it down to its specific use. You're not going to have a file with thousands of lines, but basically it takes these CS files, and when it's compiling it and to create that executable and all the additional little DLLs, it's going to interpret those and then compile them. So use namespaces in them as well. So as I was talking about the project names, that creates the namespace for it by default according to the project name. You can change this up if you want it to be in a different namespace, but the namespace is important because anything in the same namespace can be accessible as long as it has the correct, what is the right word? Visibility, I would say. So there's like public, private, protected, internal. Those all mean different things. You can look up the specific details if you're trying to learn about C#, but just be aware of that. Yeah, so a new CS file here. There's going to be a class. And we'll do the log factory next, I guess. So this is going to be the entry point for creating a logger. This is going to take in some options and allow us to add the appropriate log types at creation. So I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So we want to have a logging level. So you can specify the different, whether it's like information, debug, verbose, logging level. So we'll create that as well in another file here as well. And these are going to be enum. So enums are basically static. Yeah, they're static selections. So if you think of a drop down in like a web page, and then you have a list of like select your country, or I've seen some funny ones on the internet, but like select your phone number. So you'll have a drop down with 0 to 9, and you have to select your phone number from each drop down. Kind of annoying if that was the case, but or for your birthday, or I've seen that as well. So you can think of it as like that. It's a kind of like a selector. It allows you to give it a type name. I'm not sure why I would just call it enum. But we want logging level, right? So public enum. So public means that anybody can use it. So we want it to be public. Information is going to be at the very top. That's going to be our default. Yep, information, debug, equals 1 and a verbose. So by writing it this way, basically this means that we not only do we have different logging types, we are able to specify a logging level for each of those types. So if we want the console to display verbose messages but don't want all that junk in the log file, well, we can separate that out and they can have each a different logging level. Kind of cool. But information at the top there, so that's going to be, you know, the basic minimum. That's all the good stuff that you want to see. So like, you know, according to a trading bot, you know, made a purchase, made a sale, current balance, markets closed, markets open, maybe trading updates. That might be verbose. Probably, yeah, maybe filled orders. That'd be kind of cool. I don't think anything much more than that. Don't want to clog it up with information. Debug is going to be, you know, trying to figure out what your program's doing. You want to throw in some debug messages to add some additional information. If you're trying to figure out, you know, why values aren't lining up, or if value is being interpreted correctly, maybe throw it in a debug message, kind of see that outcome. And then verbose, well, that's when you just flood your screen with almost line by line. Okay, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, you know, type thing. Usually not used, but sometimes you do use it if you get lost or you don't know what's happening, which frankly happens a lot. So switch back here to the log factory. So now that we have an enum for logging level, let's make that a value for the logger. So I'm just defining a public property, logging level. All right, what else do we want here? We want so we need to be able to add channels, I guess. They're called delegates, but basically since we have different types, we want to be able to add multiple types and output to the different channels. So we're just going to use delegates for that. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, or if there's like a you know, performance impact on that. I haven't had an issue with it, but that's what we're going to do for now. If you all have any suggestions, please comment. I'm definitely here to learn, and I have no official training outside of a basic C# class. Mostly self-taught, and got to learn to survive at work. Or not survive, maybe just be useful. Guess you can survive, not do too much at work these days, but not get into that. Just bear with me here. Keyboard's super loud. I know it's kind of cool to listen to. I enjoy it. Makes me feel very powerful, hitting keys very loudly. Isn't that why we get these? Oops. Guess I could be copying. I have to annoy you so much, huh? That's why we get these mechanical keyboards. It just feels good. You're in total control while typing. So I'm enjoying the stream so far. Hope everyone else is, if you come back and watch this. Hopefully you get some useful information out of this. And we'll call that log information. So basically all we're doing here is defining a delegate. So we're defining a method type, and then we are creating properties or instances of those where you can initiate them, right? So, or I'm sorry, not initiate, but basically add a function to it, or instantiate. Is that the right word? I'm not sure on that one. So again, we're just going to do the same thing here for each one of them. And speed this up by, oops. Oh, come on. So as you can see here, this red line, so because C# is a compiled language, it is very type sensitive. So if you have an error, it will not compile. It'll just output that error to you. So that's why it's highlighting it here in red. Visual Studio, that's the IDE that I'm using. They have what they call IntelliSense. So they have a lot of useful tips. You can see all this, popping up here, giving me some information about everything I'm doing. So that's their IntelliSense, kind of just giving you a lay of the land. So basically it's telling me here there's a problem because you can't have two of the same properties with the same name. So these are actually warnings. Error. And verbose. Now we're going to create some, I guess, kind of utility functions to allow the setting of the logging level just by using a function. I've seen this used, this method used in other languages. Oops, not sure. Or I'm saying, sorry, other logging libraries. But it's kind of cool. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. I guess I don't know how I'm going to explain it, but minimum information. So basically this is allowing us to define a minimum logging level. So it's going to just set the internal property. So when you create a class, you're going to do like new log factory, right? And then parentheses because there's no constructor for it. So it's just, here, I'll just do it up here. New log factory, right? You would do this. And then these little utility functions allow you to then call them, or their methods, I guess, in C#, sorry, methods. Functions, I'm stuck on PowerShell still. So you would be able to then specify minimum information. And you would be defining it like this, right? And then you can do minimum information, and that will set the logging level equals logging level dot information, right? So it's kind of a cool way. So, and then we return this object, right? So initializes it, then we call the method from it, we set the logging level, then we return this. So the other way to do that is after you set it, right, or after you got it, and then, or you assign it to a variable, then you go logger dot logging level equals logging, right, level dot information. So kind of shorthand if you're able to kind of chain, the methods together, right? So kind of cool. So that's two different ways to do it. I like it. It's kind of neat to chain things together like that. Anyways, that was just a quick little tutorial, but that's basically what we're going to be doing with these little, there's little helper methods. All right, so debug. We only have 3 types. What's the last one? That's right, verbose. 3 types of logging levels. Verbose is the last one. All right, so we got our little helpers. Now we got our channels. So we can subscribe to these with our actual logging types. And yeah. And since we want, so in the types, we're going to have also helper functions that are going to be tagged on in the same way when you're creating a new log factor or a new logger. And we're going to allow them to create their own subscriptions. So they'll be allowed to initiate themselves and then subscribe to the different channels. So when something comes in, anything subscribed to this delegate will then start logging it. So let's see how that looks here. And we'll start with the console and then we'll test it and kind of see what it looks like. Excuse me. Got a little stuffy nose here. No, I'm not sick. So we'll call this a public class. Oh, oops. Way ahead of myself. Yeah, console logger. Yeah, public here. Public class console logger. And this is where we want to use that iLogger that we created earlier. So you can see here, implement interface, and voila. Now it tells us exactly, unfortunately in the wrong order, what we have to implement. Sorry, I'm a stickler here. Like information, debug, warning, error. Might as well create some consistency. It'd be kind of nice if it would just implement in the same fashion here, but yeah, maybe that's some feedback we can give to Microsoft. All right, so we need an actual logger, so the thing that is actually going to be doing the logging. So oops, yeah, this is this instance. Read only. How did I mess that up? So there can only be one. That's what the static read only means. Can only be one, can't be changed. We're just going to call it logger. I've seen private, private fields have the underscore in front. Not really a fan. It's kind of easy to tell. I don't know. I go back and forth on that sometimes, I think, but we're going to do no underscores for this project. We also need to have a logging level as well. I guess we should, can we have that? No, we can't have properties, can we? Yeah, we can. Should we have that in our iLogger? I almost think we should. Right? Definitely have to have a logging level. Yeah. Let's try it. Let's add it. Can you do that? Logging level. Logging level. And we did a get set, right? Does that meet the letter of the law? Yeah, it looks like it's implemented. Oh, it doesn't like it. Oh, because I defined it as static. Yeah, that makes sense. That's right. Doesn't have the same accessing level. Because if I did it this way, this would be per instance. So we definitely do not want to do that. Okay. And we need a... So in the past, looks like I tried to do a safe type logging and created a lock when logging. I wonder if I had issues. Yeah, I wonder if I had some issues at one point with threading and asynchronous operations. So we'll create our constructor next. That's how you actually create the console logger. So let's do public console logger. Logging level. This is just a parameter that we're passing in. Default value is information. So everything default to information here. Don't need that extra space. And we'll set logging level to lower logging level. The one that's provided. Right. Okay. So this is the logging level per instance, and then in our factory, this is the logging level up here. So you can see that we have two different logging levels. I think that's how it should go. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. All right. So I guess we need to start implementing these functions. Sorry, methods. All right, so we want to log information. And since we created a message lock, let's use it. I kind of want to rename that. Camel case. That look weird. Now we'll just roll with it. So this is going to console.writeLine. And let's do a just simple date time, I guess. Now in I like this format. This is the standard format. That looks good. And we're going to, I like to just make it very apparent where the messages are coming from. So when we're in our console, it's going to just output the current time on the left. It'll space it out, information, and then output the message. So whatever the message is, called from the application, that's what it'll be output. And we'll do the same here. So I'm gonna add async here. I don't think that's going to do too much, but let's do it. Just going to continue on and not wait. And the locks will kind of, I think, keep it in check. And do one per. So as soon as one's done and it gets done with the lock, I'll move on to the next one. Let's see how that goes. Okay. And we're just going to copy and paste that a few times. So we got information, debug, warning, and verbose. And let's make it look kind of cool. So if we're a error, let's change the foreground color, console color.yellow. So errors are going to be written in yellow, the whole line, and then we're going to reset it after. And let's do the same for, just because that will look kind of neat, and it'll be easily distinguishable. And honestly, I might even make debug messages magenta. Yeah, typically debug is magenta, error is red, and we will also, let's do it for all of them, might as well, right? Let's do that. That lock, I think, is going to help us here as well when we're changing colors. Midstream here, we're trying to output messages. So verbose blue, error red, warning yellow. Shoot, let's just do, man, it's going to be super colorful. Was there magenta? Oh, there is. Oh my gosh. This is going to be cool. I'm loving it. All right, man, this logger is so cool. All right. What do you guys think? Think that cool? I like it. All right, can we test this? Are we ever using this? That was the point of it. Oh, all right. So now we need our actual utility function. All right. So is that outside that class? So as I said before, we had a partial class here in the log factory. So now we're going to add our kind of helper functions to create a console logger, right? So public log, I'll show you how that works again in a second. So this is adding, oops, sorry, public partial class. Got ahead of myself again. Public log factory. So this is going to say add console. So basically this is in this file adding a method to this file. So partial classes, you can spread out the class so you know, kind of make it a little more modular, break things up into more specific areas or make it more readable. So it makes sense to have the factory method for a console logger in the console class file, right? So this is our default value again. Right. So this is the helper. It instantiates a new logger called new console logger. And then, did I not define the list of loggers? I forgot. Interesting. I didn't do it. Okay, so I also need a unique logger. Dictionary. So basically we have to add these to a dictionary so we can track unique types. We only want to be able to, you know, we have a console logger, we don't want to be able to add a console logger again. So let me flip back over here to my factory and add that in. Yeah, loggers. Do not want to do that. And that's read only. Yep. All right. So here we go. Loggers. Oops. If loggers dot triad. Yep. We want to add the. Are we doing? Let's see. I wonder if I could just do console logger get type. Oh, maybe logger get type. Type name. Oh yeah, that's kind of fancy. Let's do it that way. All right, and then we're going to add the actual instance of the logger. So that's going to, you know, make it unique. You could also do, I guess, let's say type of console logger, right? Dot name to give the string. That looks unique to me, potentially. Okay, and so basically all this is saying is if we do actually add it, that's what the triad does in a concurrent dictionary. If we add it, it returns true, and then we want to subscribe. So if it fails to add, that means we already have a unique console logger, and we do not want to subscribe again, or else we'll get some duplicate messages coming out, and that would just look bad. So we're going to add to the delegates here that we created earlier, so in this log factory. So you can see here we're going to do the log information, this one, debug, warning, error, verbose. And then we're going to add the logger oops, information function. So that's where these delegates come into play. I'll kind of walk you through it real quick here. So when you add something to log information and then it is executed, you will then be executing everything that is subscribed. So by subscribing with plus equals, we're adding the information function. So when you call log information, it calls this log information and then any other logger that you have as a channel. And we're keeping it unique by doing this triad. Again, not sure if this is the right way to do it, but I kind of got it to work and I was pleased with it. So if you have any inputs or suggestions, let me know. Learning. I'm just going to go through all of them here. So we got error next. Again, trying to keep the same order. Yep, there it is. All right. And then we also just need to re-return. So this is going to have the same the same function. I wonder what happens if you don't. There's no default, huh? What happens if you don't add a logger? It'll probably error out when you try to call one of these. Worry about that later. But we'll just make sure to add one for now. Yeah, so it looks like I think that should give us a logger. Let's test it out. Let's go into our little program here, and we're going to do var log equals new log factory. And nothing's going to happen because we have to reference it. So add a reference. We're going to add a reference to our logging library. And we want to include it. I thought I just did that. Oh, there we did. All right, and then we want to do minimum information, add console. So that should give us a log that we can call log information. Oh, I forgot something here. Just thought about it when that came up and showed me. We only want to log verbose if verbose, right? And I suppose we want to do that. Yeah, so only if verbose is on are we going to log verbose. Logging level equals debug. So we probably want to do equal verbose. If logging level greater than or equal to logging level debug, right? So if we select verbose, that's a higher level, and we also want to log debug, or if it equals debug, right? But not if it's equal to information. That seems right. That seems right. Okay, let's give it a shot. I don't know. Let's try it out here. All right, we just need a message. So message info message. Yeah, let's do it. All right. So warning message. I'm sorry, debug message log. That should not work. Then we got warning. This is my warning message. And these should be changing colors as well. Let's hope that works. Log error. Log verbose. So we'll do console. Oh, put that above actually. I'm just adding this. So we can see the output before the application closes. Oh, I lost it. Here we go. So we did get debug. We did not get verbose. So why did we get debug? Minimum information here. What does that do? Sets it to information. Let's check the console logger and see if it's restricting. So, oh, greater than or equal to. That is why it did not work. It's going to come up on my other screen the whole time. There we go. So minimum information. Well, we only got information warning error. That's right. And we'll change this back to minimum debug. And we'll try verbose. Greater than or equal to debug. So let's see what happens when we're trying to log a debug message. Let's actually debug it. All right, so what's our logging level here? Logging level information. It's never actually passed in. Why is this defined then? That's interesting. I don't know what I was doing with that. We shouldn't have a, I mean, should be checking it when it calls the delegates. I mean, we should almost not allow passing here and just do logging level. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Let's see. Logging level debug. Yeah, there we go. So minimum level debug. Did not get verbose either. So now our utility functions are working correctly. Looks like I was just allowing you to pass in a default, which was not correct. You should not be allowed to do that. You should set it with the factory function above. And even these shouldn't be dependent on individual implementations. All right, we should have a top level that then calls the delegate. Yeah. We should have a top level that calls the delegate, and it should use the top level logging method, potentially. In any case, we'll come back to that. I'll think about that a little bit. Just want to see this finish out here. Well, we don't want to do that every time. And there you can see. So now we got one of each message. They have some beautiful colors. But there you go. Now we have the ability to log to console. So we didn't get too far today. I mean, this is going to be taking a little while, but kind of like it so far. We're getting there. And once we get through the logging, we'll get into the meat of actually creating trading bot. Nothing's created in a day, I guess. So kind of, I guess, continue on here. We'll try to get through our file logger, at least get it started here. So we'll add a class for the file logger. And, oops. I do want to use a logging library. So I use log4net. I really like it. It works well. And I'm just going to add it to all of these solutions. Yeah, let's just throw it on all of them. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so that looks good. And we've got a public class. I gotta write that down. I do want to. I was thinking about this. This definitely should these should be private, right? The delegate's fine, whatever, you can make it public, but these properties, okay, so it's private set, fine, but we should not be calling them to log. No, we shouldn't even be calling them. So just let me explain here again. So basically we're calling these delegates directly, and then in each implementation for the console logger, we're having to check the logging level. Now that doesn't give us the ability to do, right? So we can create a console logger separately, and we're actually creating it through the log factory. So this technically could have its own logging level if you just created a new console logger. Yeah, so maybe we want to do it that way, right? Maybe, so the factory, that's fine. You have to manage your own, logging levels internally. And then the minimums passed in by the minimum that you provide in the factory. I think that's right. I think that's the way to do it. Or do we want to? Yeah. I think that's the way to do it. All right. So rethinking that, that's fine. So again, we got. I'm just gonna copy and paste these because I think it's gonna be the exact same pretty much. Except we're gonna have a different logging method. But the order and the locks will be the same. Actually, let's just take it all. Let's do it. Almost done here with the stream, but I think I might go over and just try to wrap this up real quick. That way we can start fresh and move on to the next topic that we need to look at, which would be, just real quick here. What's next? So we got the console application. We got some logging. Maybe we could start thinking about the runtime and maybe how we're gonna. Oh, actually, we'll do the configuration tomorrow. That's very important. We can't get started with anything unless we can actually start defining what mode we're in and connecting to the API with some keys. So I'll do that probably tomorrow. All right, real quick here. Let me see if I can finish this up. So we want to use a log4net logger. So we're not going to use that. We're going to use a read-only, I think it's ilog. That part of log, yes, that's the right one. And we're just going to call it, and call logger, whatever. And then log manager. Yep, that's correct. logger. This is probably where I got this factory idea from. They do some similar things, it looks like. Let's say a type of... Do I have to do a type? I mean, how do we want to do that? I mean, file logger, I guess? No, we want to be able to instantiate this with the source type. Right, so it'll give you the calling location. So like if we call it in a class called runtime or trader or something like that, does that matter? We'll come back to that. I'll just do file logger for now. That's fine. So that we still want. If we create a file logger on its own, we do want a message lock. We'll leave that. This is going to have to change though to the same class name as up here. This is the same. We want to now create, so there's two ways you can initialize a log4net instance for logging, file logging. You can either do it in code or they have XML syntax format. I'm just going to do it in code, hard code it here. Probably not the best way, but I do like the way it kind of rolls out. So I do have a reference here up, and I'm kind of just going to work through it to select the options that I want. And originally I probably found some documentation on log4net or somebody's tutorial. So if you do want to know more about the file logger log4net, take a peek online and see if you can find the documentation, or let me know and I might be able to go through a little tutorial here in the near future. Log4net has been around for a very long time. It's pretty good. It just works. Creates good rolling log files. So this is just creating a pattern how we want the message to look. So we're just going to say pattern layout, conversion pattern. So it's going to take these predefined variables in log4net and do some replacements based off of the order that you're doing it. So we're going to do date, then we're going to have some thread information output here, and then we're going to do -5 level, so that's the maximum level, logger, and then message, and then we're going to do a new line. So these are all built into log4net. These are just their variables, so you can put them in any order you want. You can put date at the end, you can put thread at the end, whatever. I think I just came up with this format because I like the way it looked. And this just activates it. Right. And then we're going to create a rolling file appender. This way we are going to be able to roll the log file on the day or on file size. And this is going to be our log names. We're just going to output to wherever our current directory is, logs. We'll just do trade me up log. And again, since it's a rolling one, it's going to apply some date information here, as well as, I think just date. I think I'm doing that. and probably like a 1, 2, 3, 4 if it ever gets big enough that it has to roll on size. Right, so we're just applying our layout for that roller that we defined up here. And so in the rolling files, it's going to look like that. So that just preserves the extension. So it'll tack on, you know, dates in between here and then preserve that .log, which is kind of cool. Like I said, Log4net, been around for a while, really cool. So we're just going to say max file size, pretty large, 1 gigabyte. So I doubt we'll ever hit that in a day, but hey, you never know if we're logging those verbose messages. Oh, interesting. Selected the wrong one. Rolling style. So it's going to roll on date, right? Static log file name equals false. Now we're going to activate the roller options that we added. Again, these are all of our roller options. And we're going to add the roller to the hierarchy. All right, added that. There's a memory appender. Memory appender. Thank you. Oops. Sorry. All right. And then hierarchy. Add that appender. And then we're going to say it's configured. All right, so there we go. We configured our Log4net in code and not using a XML file. So we'll just go ahead and start logging to our actual file logger, and we don't have to specify anything but the message here because, again, Log4net does its own formatting. We specified that here. So unlike the console, we did have to, but we're just going to call our logger here, log info, right? So information, perfect. And we're going to leave the if. We're going to leave the if. Yeah. And we're going to just start doing the same thing. And error. Pretty sure there's a verbose. Let's verify. There is. Not a verbose. Can we just tack on? Yeah. Yeah, it's just going to have to be a straight message. All right, so that's our file logger. Let's try to add that now with the utility function. So that's the class public partial class log factory add file. What do we want to call that? Add file. Public. We're going to return a log factory. And no default logging level like last time. And we're just basically going to do the same thing here. I wonder if I can abstract that out a little bit. Type of file logger. Right, so we got a new file logger with the logging level. And that's how we do if statements off of that. I think that's going to work. And then we just do logger, this, and that should be it. So let's add that here. Oh. And we're just going to do it here, add file. Yeah. So now we should be able to get logs to the console and to a file. And we'll test that here real quick. Okay, we did all of them. And let's go ahead and open up our location here. And let's drill down to debug logs folder. And there you go. We got our file logger working. Looks pretty clean. That we might want to be able to specify though. And that I think we can change potentially. I'll have to double check on that. But looks like we finished our logger today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream. Appreciate everybody coming back and taking a view on this. If you do, please subscribe to see when I go live next. I'm going to try to stream this daily. I'm going to upload my progress to GitHub daily. So join along. Come interact, give suggestions, tell me how I can improve, and we're going to get into the trading bot very quickly here. Probably a couple more days of setup. So we got the configuration file, which will probably wrap up tomorrow. Next day, we got to start working on the runtime. So that involves creating the framework to connect. So we'll get all the objects from the Alpaca SDK, connect to their servers with our keys that we load from our configuration file. And we can start getting account information at that point. We'll start creating a streamer so we can start streaming and set up a way to manage our streaming connections throughout the day. So yeah, thanks again. Take care and catch you next time.